Hi everyone and welcome to this video. My name is Christoph and we're gonna have a look at a few tips on how to improve your web meetings. With the coronavirus going across the globe and everyone is panicking, companies are trying to keep their people safe and trying to switch over to web meetings instead of actual meetings. Now, I believe that if you do a web meeting and you use the camera properly, you can have an almost equal good experience as if you were face to face and have the added benefit of not having to travel and not getting the virus. So we're gonna look at some tips and tricks. I made this video specifically for my colleagues to help them out, but any of you who wants to use Zoom or Skype or Teams or whatever you guys are using as a web conferencing tool, I think these tips will help. We will do this video in three parts. One will be about improving the video quality, one will be about improving the audio quality, and third and lastly, we'll talk about some ways to behave in front of the camera, which I can assume for many of you does not feel natural at all. So, for the rest of this video, we're gonna switch over to the webcams because I want to give you the experience as if you were using these tools and see how some of these small changes can make a difference. So let's dive into the first part, which is the improvement of the video quality. I have had so many meetings, so many Zoom meetings with colleagues and also customers where they were sitting in front of a window because that's the easiest to work on the laptop. They use the laptop's camera, but the screen is tilted backwards, so the camera is looking up my chin. It doesn't look good. It's a black silhouette against a very bright background. So the first thing that we need to do is make sure that the camera is in the right position. And secondly, and most importantly, that we have the right lighting. So let's start with the lighting. And I'm going to quickly change from where I'm sitting right now to where I'm sitting right now. So this is already a huge improvement. I have one big window on my right, which shines most of the light on the right side of my face, but I also have a light source over there, which is the window on the other side of the living room here, and that will make sure that this side isn't dark. So the general rule is that you can't have too much light, but you have to make sure that it's diffused so that it doesn't all end up in your face and you get a big contrast between certain areas, whether it's you and the background or you and other parts of you. Like I said, if this side is really lit and this side is pitch black, that wouldn't work either. So have as many lights on as you can. That's a first good beginning. Secondly, you can take the laptop and put it higher up. Not too high because that looks ridiculous, but about eye level would be perfect. Now if that's not possible, then at least what you can do is, instead of sitting closer and tilting it back, is just tilt it right up and just sit a little bit further. That gives the impression that gives you a much better picture. And of course it gives you more of you, so you have more chances to use your arms and put some more body language into it, which of course will better transfer your message. So sitting next to a window usually gives you the best lighting performance. Unless you have like studio lights or something, next to a window gives you tons of lumen and it's diffused light, so it's really good. But of course, if you have to do it late at night or early in the morning, it's still dark, it doesn't work, or you're in an office area where there simply isn't a window nearby or something like it, you have to use other lighting. I use a separate webcam on top of the monitor. The monitor also is a huge light source. So I try to have like a wide background, something to get as much light from the monitor to begin with. I also have another desk lamp back there that gives some more diffused light from a different angle. I usually let it bounce off the white wall so it's not as harsh in my face. And of course I have the lights on above me, as much light as I can turn on, just to get more ambient light in the room. Like I said, you want to get as little contrast as possible. So with regards to the separate webcam, that is really important if you use a separate monitor. Because the worst thing that could happen is something like this, where I'm working on my big monitor and the laptop is sitting next to me and the camera of the laptop there is used to look at me, but I'm looking at you sitting behind the big screen or projected on the big screen. So that doesn't make any sense. By putting a camera on top of the monitor, one, the angle is more or less good enough. Two, I can sit a little bit more backwards and have more body language if possible. Three, I have enough lighting, and actually this is not really true, because you see that the dark shirt is a bit too much of a contrast compared to the other part of the room. So what I could do is I could just maybe turn the light around. You see now it's very harsh. So maybe I could just better recommend not wearing the dark shirt. That works better. Or maybe I should put even more lights on there. For the second part, let's talk about audio. Now, when making videos, like YouTube videos, audio is of the utmost importance. Now, when doing a Zoomcast, audio is also very important, because if they can't understand what you're saying, your message is never gonna come across. Now, there is a problem in the difference between make a video like this and actually doing a Zoom session, is that you don't only have to send good audio, you also have to have a way to listen to what the customer or your colleague is saying on the other side. And the problem there is that if you put them on speakers, then unless there's really good noise cancelling, you will have the audio from the one you have a conference with being received by the microphone that you are using to send your audio, and that can create some weird effects, and it's very exhausting to listen to. So the best way to do it is to have a good headset. Now, let's get you some examples. So the first option that I have here is one of those gaming headsets. They usually have good audio. They're very comfortable. You can wear them for a long time, and they have a good boom mic with good reception. It really works well. But of course, you kind of look like a pilot or a caster for some kind of sports game, whether it's esports or another sports. There is kind of common, but no. It's maybe not the best option, especially when talking to a customer. It's a good option for colleagues. They can look at you and think you're ridiculous. What do you care? It's your colleague. But when it comes to customers, you maybe want to do it a little bit differently. So the best option I can think of is to have a Bluetooth headset that works well with the computer. Now, those are the best, usually very good audio quality. They're discreet and they're wireless, so you can move around. Now, what I always find is a very good alternative is just your regular iPhone or smartphone you usually get with it, because it has fairly discreet, yes, they're wide, but anyway, and it has a fairly good microphone. So this will do the trick. It won't cause any noise loops, etc. Now, if you have a similar discrete headset, but it doesn't have a microphone, usually the microphone from the camera is good enough to receive your voice, especially if you don't have any noise coming out of the speakers that might cause any distractions. The last thing I want to say about the audio is the fact that you don't want to have a room where there's too much echo. So this actually is not the best example, I will admit. But if you can dampen it by making sure there's a carpet and other surfaces that don't reflect the sound as much as it does, then that is definitely improvement. And this is a downside of sitting in front of this big monitor, is that you do get a lot of sound reflections. So it's better not to talk too loud then in that case, so that there's no echo, because the mic will pick up the echo and it won't sound as clear as it can. And the downside of unclear audio is that it's very exhausting to listen to. So it's already sometimes exhausting to listen to the one that's speaking in general, but adding on top of that the discomfort of having to listen to bad audio or a lot of noise in the background is not a good thing. So if you are doing a Zoom session, make sure you're in a quiet room with not as much echo as possible. The third and last part of this video is about how to act in front of the camera. And I've seen many mistakes, like people are making an explanation, but they're not really looking at the screen. They're just doing talking as they would on the phone. And the problem with that is that people feel like you're not talking to them. It feels disengaged. Now, if you have a Zoom session or a web conference with someone on the other side also using the camera, that's usually easier because you have at least those people to look at when you're talking to the camera. But if the other person on the other side of the connection isn't using his camera, you're basically talking to no one. Now, you could train yourself to look into the camera like I'm doing right now, which over time becomes easier. But for me, still today, now I'm trying to do my best to look into the camera, but I find it still very hard when I'm trying to make a point and I need to have a person to talk to. And what helps for me is usually most web conferencing tools will have a little window with you in there so that you can see that the camera's on, that you are in frame. And what I do is I try to put that video feed as high up or as close to the camera as possible, so that I can look at basically myself and explain what I'm explaining to myself. And to give you the difference between now I'm looking directly into the camera and now I'm looking to myself, if I was looking at myself like this the whole time, you probably wouldn't really notice it. Now in this case, it's still a fairly big window. Let me see if I can make it smaller. See, now I made that window smaller and now you can see that it's more as if I'm looking into the camera. And that really helps. Now I can talk to a person, even though it's me, and I can see if something is amiss in the background or something. So make sure you talk to the camera as close as possible. Don't have it over here where it doesn't make sense. And now I'm putting it down there. So yeah, you see, this is not good. And as I said, make sure that you are not using the camera of the laptop next to you if you're using a big monitor. Another thing that I would say is make sure that your room is a little bit tidy. Don't have a mess of books stacked here or whatever junk you have lying around. Yes, this is my bedroom, but at least I made sure the bed was made so it looks a little bit tidy. I don't have any other space to work to do these things, so that is the only thing that's the only option I have. If you're really tech savvy, you could work with a green screen and some software, but let's not go into that. So to summarize, number one, make sure you get as good as video quality as you can by using a better camera if you have one available, by making sure the camera is in the right position, both on the height and make sure it's not looking up your face. Make sure your lighting is correct, so not in front of a window. I repeat, not in front of a window. And make sure you use enough of the light, whether it is the window from the right angle or some other light sources. Don't use one light source, use multiple light sources. Make sure your face is lit up from as many angles as you can, as good as you can. It will only improve the video quality. Audio quality is important, and the most important thing is to make sure you don't get any echo from the sound coming from the other side through the speakers being picked up again by the microphone, and just in general try to find a quiet space. And thirdly, when doing your session, engage with the camera even if it feels uncomfortable. Make sure that the people on the other side get your message loud and clear. And most importantly, have some fun. So those were my tips. I hope you think it was useful. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I see you in the next one. Bye bye.